People have always been jealous of me. And why wouldn't they be? I'm beautiful, intelligent, hold an MBA from a prestigious university, and most importantly, I always know how to make things go my way. Let's be honest, there are two types of people in this world: those who work tirelessly, breaking their backs for mere scraps of success, and those who are born to lead, destined for greatness from the moment they take their first breath. I belong to the latter, and I've never apologized for it. Since childhood, I have been the darling of the family. Everyone adored me, and I knew how to enjoy it, to bask in the warmth of their admiration and use it to my advantage. While Jessica, my sister, buried herself in books, drowning in lifeless numbers and endless equations, I knew how to live a life worth remembering, worth talking about. I didn't waste my youth in dull office attire or tedious meetings that led nowhere. Instead, I traveled to exotic destinations, attended lavish parties where deals were really made, and built connections with important people who could open doors that others couldn't even see. Because, you see, this world isn't about who works the hardest, it's about who knows how to play the game right, and I've always been an exceptional player. I won't deny that Jessica is intelligent. But she's too rigid, too dull, too predictable. Her entire life revolves around work, with no clue how to enjoy it or make it work for her instead of the other way around. While I was sipping cocktails on a yacht in Miami, networking with industry leaders and creating opportunities, she was stuck in a cramped office in Dallas, poring over soulless spreadsheets as if they held the secrets to success. I was different. I could see further ahead, seize opportunities that others missed, and transform them into golden chances. And most importantly, I knew how to make people trust me, believe in me, want to follow my lead. So when I heard about River's Edge, our family vineyard, struggling financially, I knew it was my time to step up and take it to the next level. I wasn't worried like the others. I didn't panic like our accountants. I calculated. That's what a true business mind does. Where others saw problems, I saw potential. Where they saw crisis, I saw opportunity. Of course, there was one small problem. Jessica. She had poured $850,000 into saving the vineyard. A significant investment, I'll admit, and one that showed her typical approach to problems: throw money at them until they go away. But did she think that meant she had the right to control everything? Hilarious. I have an MBA from one of the most prestigious business schools. I was trained to run a business, to see the bigger picture, to understand the intricate dance of commerce and connection. And her? A financial advisor? Someone who just crunches numbers all day, living in her world of spreadsheets and projections? Leadership isn't just about money. It's about vision, strategy, and the ability to connect with the people who can truly change the game. And no one does that better than me. When my father announced that I would be the CEO of River's Edge, I wasn't surprised. It was inevitable, really. I had been preparing for this moment my entire life, cultivating the right relationships, learning the right lessons, positioning myself perfectly for this role. And as I stepped onto the stage at my appointment ceremony, wearing my carefully selected designer suit, I knew I had won. The victory felt as sweet as our finest vintage. Jessica sat in the front row, holding her wine glass, but I noticed her fingers tightening around the stem, her knuckles turning white with suppressed emotion. I couldn't help but smile. Her anger made this victory even sweeter. Did she really think she could buy power with money? Did she believe that her investment gave her the right to lead? No, darling. Power is meant for those who deserve it. Those who understand its true nature. Those who know how to wield it effectively. And no one deserves it more than me. Has anyone ever truly understood what it feels like to be born for something? That absolute certainty, that deep awareness that you belong in a position, not because you worked the hardest, but simply because you are better than everyone else? It's a feeling that transcends mere confidence. It's an innate understanding of your place in the world, like a perfectly cut diamond finding its setting in a crown. That is me. Standing on the stage of the grand warehouse at River's Edge, I smiled as the warm golden light reflected off the wine glass in my hand, creating dancing patterns on my perfectly manicured fingers. Around me were guests, important partners, distributors, people who would now be working under me. The applause echoed like a symphony of pure pleasure, each clap a validation of what I had always known to be true. The crystal chandeliers seemed to sparkle in agreement, their light catching every perfect moment of my triumph. My father proudly announced, his voice carrying the weight of generations of winemakers. Today, we are thrilled to announce that Andrea, with her prestigious MBA and modern vision, will officially become the new CEO of River's Edge. We trust that she will take our family's legacy to new heights. I took a sip of wine, feeling the subtle bitterness glide over my tongue, savoring both the complex notes of our finest vintage and the sweetness of victory. That's right, I was the most suitable person to lead this company. The wine itself seemed to acknowledge this truth, its rich bouquet a testament to the legacy I would now control. I had always known that one day, I would be at the center of River's Edge. While I wasn't directly involved in grape growing or winemaking like Jessica, I understood business better than anyone in this family. A vineyard isn't just about wine, it's about branding, strategy, and profit. It's about understanding the delicate balance between tradition and innovation, between heritage and progress. My MBA wasn't just a degree, it was a key to unlocking potential that others couldn't even see. Anyone who thinks sweating in the fields is enough to run a business clearly understands nothing about the complexities of modern commerce, the intricate dance of market forces, or the art of building a global brand. I glanced down, my gaze deliberately falling on the front row. Jessica sat there, her eyes empty, like vintage bottles drained of their contents. The defeat in her posture was almost palpable, a visible reminder of the natural order of things. The wine glass in her hand was frozen midair, as if she had just been dealt a crushing blow. I nearly laughed at the poetic justice of it all. Did she really think that just because she poured money into saving the vineyard, she would be given control? Money might buy many things, but it can't buy the natural ability to lead, to inspire, to dominate. I could almost hear her thoughts, the calculations spinning in her mind like the endless spreadsheets she so loves to analyze. I was the one who invested the money, so why am I not being recognized? Mom and Dad betrayed me. Andrea doesn't deserve this. She only knows how to spend money. Oh, please. She might be good at investing, but that doesn't mean she understands how to run a brand. Numbers on a page don't translate to vision, and spreadsheets can't capture the essence of leadership. Praises flooded toward me like the finest wine flowing from our cellars. I knew you'd be CEO soon. So well-deserved, Andrea. River's Edge needs a new direction, and you're the one to lead it into the future. I've heard about your business strategies. Very impressive. I responded with a confident smile and firm handshakes, each gesture calculated to convey both authority and grace. People adored me, and I loved it. This was my natural habitat, the spotlight, the admiration, the power. At that moment, I felt a gentle hand on my arm, interrupting my reverie of triumph. It was my mother, ever the diplomat, ever the peacekeeper. She held on to me, her gaze soft, but I could sense a hint of tension beneath her carefully maintained composure. Jessica, you understand, don't you? Andrea has an MBA. She has management knowledge. She can help the family grow. I looked at my sister again. Jessica seemed to be struggling to swallow the bitterness rising in her throat, like a poor vintage that refuses to go down smoothly. She pressed her lips together, her gaze sharp as a blade, yet outwardly, she maintained a composed expression. And that was the difference between us. While she bottled up her emotions like our wines in the cellar, I wore my superiority like a perfectly tailored designer suit, with confidence, grace, and absolute certainty. I knew how to accept victory with grace. She only knew how to cling to resentment, like a vine desperately clinging to a withered trellis, refusing to let go even when the support was long gone. I raised my glass, the crystal catching the light in a way that seemed to amplify my moment of triumph. The wine inside, our signature Cabernet, sparkled like liquid rubies, a fitting tribute to this momentous occasion. A toast to a bright future for River's Edge and to all that we will accomplish together. My voice carried across the room with the same confident authority that had earned me this position. The room erupted in cheers, glasses clinking in the vast space of the warehouse. The sound reverberated off the walls, creating a symphony of celebration that seemed to validate every decision that had led to this moment. The enthusiasm was palpable, electric. Everyone could feel that this was the dawn of a new era for River's Edge. Jessica was the only one who didn't raise her glass. Instead, she quietly stood up and left the celebration, wearing an expression I couldn't quite decipher. There was something deeper in her eyes, something dangerous. Something that reminded me of storm clouds gathering over our vineyard, threatening to unleash chaos. But I didn't care, because I had won. And when you win, you don't need to care about what the loser is thinking. Victory has a way of making everything else seem insignificant, like small imperfections in an otherwise perfect vintage. Do you know what it feels like to experience complete victory? It's when you walk away with the title of CEO in your hands, when people look at you with admiration, when even your own family acknowledges you as the leader. It's like standing at the highest point of our vineyard, overlooking rows upon rows of perfectly maintained vines, knowing that everything you see is now under your control. But victory never lasts forever, does it? And Jessica, my sister, never knew how to accept defeat. She was like an unripe grape, bitter and hard, refusing to mature gracefully with time. The first message arrived the next morning, disrupting my perfect moment of triumph. Jessica, we need to talk about finances. I skimmed the text while sipping my cappuccino at my favorite cafe downtown, the foam creating a perfect heart pattern that matched my mood. Annoying. I didn't reply right away. Who did she think she was to be giving me orders? The hierarchy had been established, and she needed to learn her place. An hour later, the second message came, more insistent than the first. Jessica, call me as soon as you can. This is serious. I smirked. Serious? What could possibly be serious? I had taken over the company for only a day. I hadn't even had time to settle into the CEO chair yet, and she was already acting like the world was about to collapse. Typical Jessica, always treating minor issues like major catastrophes. I set my phone down and continued enjoying my breakfast, savoring each bite of my perfectly prepared croissant. Jessica was always like this, always making a big deal out of everything, as if the sky would fall if things didn't go exactly according to her precious spreadsheets. But by the afternoon, when I returned to my new office at River's Edge, the office I had already started mentally redecorating, my mother suddenly walked in, her face tense with worry lines I hadn't seen before. You need to talk to Jessica. Now. Her voice carried a gravity that made my stomach tighten slightly. I blinked, slightly irritated at this interruption of my first day as CEO. About what? My mother sighed, a sound heavy with implications. Jessica has sent a legal request. She wants her investment back. Immediately. I blinked again, unable to believe my ears. Wait. What? My mother placed an envelope on the desk. I opened it and read. And instantly, anger flared inside me like a wildfire threatening our precious vines. Jessica was demanding the family repay $850,000, plus 8% interest, within 30 days. If not, she would take legal action. I threw the letter onto the desk, disbelief coursing through me. She actually thinks she can do this to us? I snapped, my voice sharp as pruning shears. My mother placed a trembling hand on my shoulder. Jessica says she doesn't trust the family anymore, Andrea. She wants all her money back. I let out a bitter laugh. Trust? Is she serious? She's family. Family doesn't do this to each other. But deep down, I knew why Jessica was doing this. This wasn't about trust. This was about revenge, served as cold as our finest Chardonnay. She was furious. Furious that she had invested money but hadn't gained power. She thought that just because she poured money into the company, she had the right to control everything. Her rage was palpable, like a dark cloud threatening to unleash a devastating storm over our vineyard. The investment she made, substantial as it was, didn't entitle her to dictate the future of River's Edge, but try telling that to Jessica. Ridiculous. My father was stunned when he found out. The news hit him like a poorly aged wine, bitter and hard to swallow. His decades of careful leadership and family-first philosophy were being challenged by his own daughter's greed. "What the hell is Jessica doing?" he roared in the conference room, his voice echoing off the oak-paneled walls. "Is she trying to destroy this family?" His hands trembled as he gripped the edge of the mahogany table, knuckles white with tension. No one had an answer, because no one thought Jessica would go this far. We all knew she was ambitious, even ruthless at times, but this level of betrayal? It was like watching our premium grapes rot on the vine, a waste of potential, a destruction of something precious. I stood with my arms crossed, trying to suppress the anger burning in my throat. The same throat that had moments ago toasted to success now felt constricted with rage. "Is there any way to stop her?" I asked bluntly, my voice carrying the sharp edge of a freshly honed pruning knife. My father shook his head, his face pale as our Pinot Grigio. Years of stress and family dynamics had etched deep lines around his eyes, but I'd never seen him look this defeated. "Her lawyer is good, Andrea. If she actually sues, all our finances will be exposed. And, his voice trailed off, heavy with unspoken implications. I understood immediately. The weight of family secrets pressed down like overripe grapes in the press. Our family couldn't afford to have its finances exposed. The carefully maintained facade of River's Edge would crumble like ancient cork. Because if that happened, the truth would come out. The truth about the creative accounting, the shifted numbers, the carefully hidden discrepancies that kept our vineyard afloat during lean years. That evening, I called Jessica. The sun was setting over the vineyard, painting the sky in shades of burgundy, a cruel reminder of what we stood to lose. "What the hell are you doing?" I snapped the moment she picked up, my words sharp as broken glass. Jessica responded with an infuriatingly calm voice, smooth as our aged Merlot. "I want my money back." Simple as that. I gritted my teeth, jaw clenching like a wine press. "You seriously think money is everything? You're tearing this family apart for your own personal gain." The words tasted bitter in my mouth. Jessica let out a cold laugh, the sound reminiscent of ice crackling in an empty glass. "I'm just taking back what's mine, Andrea. If you're as good at business as you claim to be, you'll find a way to pay me back without sinking the company. Right?" I hated that tone. It dripped with condescension, like overripe grapes threatening to spoil the entire harvest. That arrogant, self-righteous attitude. The same attitude that had always made her believe she deserved more than what she had earned. She actually thought she had the upper hand. Like a novice wine taster pretending to be a sommelier. I took a deep breath, inhaling the familiar scent of oak and earth that permeated our offices. "Fine. Then let's talk like a family. No lawyers. Don't make this worse." My voice was steady, despite the storm raging inside. Jessica was silent for a few seconds. The silence stretched like the endless rows of our vineyard. "All right. But I'm warning you. If I don't get my money back, I won't stop." Her threat hung in the air like morning mist over the vines. She hung up. I threw my phone onto the desk, the thud echoing in my spacious office. I couldn't believe Jessica actually dared to do this. To threaten everything our family had built over generations. She wanted a fight? Fine. I wasn't going to let her win. Not when I had finally achieved what I'd worked so hard for. All right then. I'll let my lawyer handle it. And by the way, she patted the stack of documents with deliberate slowness, each tap echoing like distant thunder. I did some digging into River's Edge's financial situation. I froze, feeling as if the temperature in the room had suddenly plummeted 20 degrees. "What?" Jessica locked eyes with me, her gaze razor-sharp, cutting through my defenses like a newly sharpened blade through tender vines. For example, the fact that my $850,000 wasn't fully used to save the vineyard. She flipped open a page with practiced precision, the rustling of paper sounding unnaturally loud in the tense silence. "I have the financial statements. Do you know what that means?" I swallowed hard, my throat constricting like a vine strangled by invasive weeds. "That's impossible. What the hell are you talking about?" I forced my voice to stay steady, though I could feel it threatening to crack like drought-parched earth. But Jessica wasn't done. Not by a long shot. "Let's see. $50,000 for a brand new Mercedes. Remember that? The company car you've been driving everywhere." Her words dripped with sarcasm as thick as overripe grape juice. My parents remained silent, their faces as still as statues in our family garden. Jessica continued, as if she were savoring the moment like a connoisseur sampling a particularly fine vintage. And another $35,000 for a market research trip to Italy. Must have been a very educational experience, wasn't it? Each word was carefully chosen and delivered with surgical precision. I could feel cold sweat trickling down my back like morning dew on grape leaves. This can't be happening. You have no idea what you're talking about, I snapped instantly, my words bursting forth like wine from a poorly corked bottle. All those expenses were for business purposes. We need a car, we need research to expand the brand. Jessica raised an eyebrow, the gesture as calculated as our annual harvest schedule. Is that so? Then what about the additional $120,000 transferred to a company called Rivers Edge Holdings LLC? A company where, let's see. She pretended to flip through another page, drawing out the moment like a slow pour of aged wine. Our parents and you are the primary shareholders. And from what I've found, you've been quietly shifting assets from Rivers Edge into this company to ensure that if I sued, I'd have nothing left to claim. It felt like my entire world was crumbling before my eyes, like watching our precious vines wither during a devastating frost. That's enough, Jessica. My father suddenly snapped, his voice tense as over-tightened barrel hoops. What do you want? Do you want to destroy this family? Jessica didn't even blink, her composure as unshakable as our century-old oak barrels. No. I just want my money back. And I don't care who gets hurt in the process. Her words hung in the air like the heavy scent of fermenting grapes. My mother opened her mouth as if to say something, but I could see the fear in her eyes, clear as filtered wine. Because now we were completely exposed, like grapes left vulnerable to an early frost. I had to do something. You have no solid proof, I said quickly, grasping at straws like desperate vines reaching for support. You can threaten all you want, but you can't prove that any of these expenses were illegitimate. Jessica smiled, a predatory expression that reminded me of buyers who knew they had us over a barrel. Oh, actually, I can. Remember Michael? Our family's accountant? He's provided a formal affidavit stating that you and our parents ignored his advice on financial transparency. And he's willing to testify in court if necessary. My heart plummeted like overripe fruit falling from the vine. Michael. I should have shut him up sooner. You can't do this, Jessica. I lowered my voice, trying to stay calm despite the panic fermenting inside me. You'll hurt Mom and Dad. You'll destroy this company. She tilted her head, pretending to consider it, like a sommelier contemplating a complex bouquet. Either the family pays me back every dollar I invested, or I file the lawsuit. And when that happens, you and our parents will have to explain all of this in court. Her words landed with the devastating impact of a hailstorm on delicate grape clusters, threatening to destroy everything we'd built. The entire room fell deathly silent, the tension as thick as the morning fog that often blanketed our vineyard. The only sound was the faint ticking of the antique clock on the wall, counting down moments until our potential destruction. I glanced at my mother, watching as the color drained from her face like wine from an uncorked bottle. She looked like she was about to faint, her hands trembling as they clutched the edge of the table. My father clenched his fists so tightly his knuckles turned white, his face flushed with a rage as deep as our richest Cabernet. Can you give us some time? My mother finally spoke, her voice trembling like autumn leaves in the wind. The words seemed to cost her tremendous effort, as if each syllable had to fight its way past her constricted throat. Jessica stood up with deliberate slowness, gathering the stack of documents in front of her with the precision of a vintner selecting perfect grapes for harvest. You have 25 days before I officially file the lawsuit. Her voice carried the finality of the last leaf falling from a winter-stripped vine. She turned away without another glance, her posture rigid with determination and barely contained fury. Next time, respect what belongs to me. The words fell like frozen droplets, crystallizing the air between us. The door slammed shut behind her with such force that the family photographs on the wall rattled in their frames, each one a reminder of happier times now tainted by betrayal. I had never hated Jessica more than I did at that moment, my anger burning hot as summer sun on exposed fruit. But I also knew I couldn't let her win. Not when everything we'd worked for hung in the balance. We are in free fall, plummeting through darkness with no bottom in sight. I knew it the moment my mother walked into my office the next morning, dark circles under her eyes like bruised grapes, her face tense with worry lines that hadn't been there just days before. Jessica won't back down, Andrea. She wants the full amount. Each word seemed to age her further, adding another layer of exhaustion to her already weary frame. I looked down at my desk, where Jessica's second legal demand letter lay neatly, like a sharp blade waiting to strike. The crisp black text seemed to mock me with its professional detachment. 24 days left before the lawsuit hit. The countdown felt like a noose tightening around our collective necks. I clenched my fists, but forced my voice to stay calm, like still water hiding turbulent depths. We can negotiate. She won't destroy the entire family over money. My mother slowly shook her head, each movement heavy with resignation. You don't understand, Jessica. She doesn't just want the money. She wants to prove that we were wrong. I hated hearing that, the truth of it burning like acid in my stomach. Because deep down, I knew that was exactly what Jessica wanted. Revenge served cold, like our finest white wine. My father met with lawyers, looking for ways to delay, his desperate search for loopholes growing more frantic with each passing day. My mother made desperate phone calls, trying to gather funds, her voice growing hoarser as each potential source of help turned us down. And me? I looked for a way to win, though victory seemed as elusive as capturing morning mist. I reached out to a few close business partners, searching for a loan. But no bank would touch us once they heard about the potential financial investigation. Our reputation, carefully cultivated like our finest vines, had become toxic overnight. Jessica had locked every escape route with the thoroughness of a master strategist. That night, I called her, swallowing my pride like bitter medicine. Can we talk? No lawyers. Just the two of us. Jessica was silent for a long time before replying, the pause stretching like shadows at sunset. You have 25 minutes. Don't waste my time. We met at a small cafe, far from river's edge, neutral ground for what felt like a last-ditch peace negotiation. I walked in and saw Jessica sitting there, calm, cold, as if she already knew how this would end. Her composure was perfect, like a bottle of aged wine waiting to be uncorked. I sat down, keeping a faint smile on my lips, though it felt as artificial as mass-produced wine. You know, we don't have to do this. Jessica raised an eyebrow, the gesture sharp as pruning shears. Do what, Andrea? Take back what's mine. I clenched my fists under the table, nails digging into my palms. We're family. Family? Jessica let out a hollow laugh that echoed like wind through empty wine barrels. I thought so too, until Mom and Dad decided to betray me. I gritted my teeth, tension radiating through my jaw. I hated the way she spoke, like we were strangers negotiating a deal, not sisters bound by blood and shared history. You can't seriously want to take this to court. It will destroy all of us. Jessica stared at me, her eyes as hard as the granite beneath our vineyard soil. No, Andrea. I don't want to destroy the family. I just want what I deserve. Her words dripped with a calculated coldness that made my skin crawl, each syllable precise and measured like perfectly spaced vineyard rows. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself against the rising tide of desperation that threatened to overwhelm me. The cafe's ambient noise faded to a distant hum as I focused on maintaining my composure. We can pay you a portion now and the rest over the next 2 years. My voice wavered slightly, betraying the fear that lurked beneath my attempted diplomacy. The proposal felt weak even as I spoke it, like offering water instead of wine. Jessica didn't even hesitate, her response cutting through the air with surgical precision. No. The single word carried the weight of 1,000 rejected compromises, as final as the last grape harvested for the season. My jaw tightened, muscles contracting painfully as I fought to maintain control. The familiar ache of tension spread across my face like a slowly expanding bruise. You really want to kill River's Edge over a little money? I tried to inject venom into the words, to make her feel the magnitude of what she was doing to our family legacy. She chuckled lightly, but her eyes gleamed with something sharp, something dangerous, like broken glass catching sunlight. The sound held no warmth, no trace of sisterly affection. $850,000 isn't a little money, Andrea. Each word was carefully enunciated, as if she was savoring the taste of them, like a wine connoisseur detecting subtle notes in an expensive vintage. Panic began to creep in, its icy fingers wrapping around my chest, constricting my breathing. The cafe's walls seemed to close in, the space between us shrinking with each passing second. Jessica's voice turned colder, if that was even possible, dropping to a temperature that could freeze the very vines we'd spent our lives tending. "If you can't pay me on time, I'll file the lawsuit. And you know." She leaned back in her chair, the movement smooth and predatory, like a cat preparing to pounce. "If the SEC gets involved, what do you think they'll find?" I froze, feeling as if all the blood in my body had suddenly turned to ice. The ambient chatter of the cafe became a distant roar in my ears. Jessica knew. The realization hit me like a sudden frost destroying an entire season's crop. She knew that if the SEC started digging, they'd uncover everything we had done. Every financial shortcut, every creative accounting decision, every desperate attempt to keep Rivers Edge afloat during the lean years. The Mercedes we'd written off as a business expense. The Italy trip disguised as a wine sourcing expedition. The shell company we'd created to manage our more questionable transactions. Each secret felt like a time bomb waiting to explode. "You have 10 days to figure it out. After that, we meet in court." Her ultimatum hung in the air like smoke, toxic and suffocating. Jessica stood up, the scrape of her chair against the floor jarring in the tense atmosphere. She gathered her belongings with deliberate slowness, each movement a reminder of her complete control over the situation. I remained sitting there, shaking with rage, watching her walk away. My hands trembled against the table's surface, fingers pressed so hard against the wood that my knuckles turned white. The coffee between us had gone cold, untouched and forgotten like our once strong sisterly bond. I hated her. The emotion surged through me with the intensity of a summer storm, raw and powerful. I hated how she could sit there so calmly while threatening to destroy everything our family had built. I hated how she could weaponize our mistakes against us. Most of all, I hated that she was right, we had wronged her, and now we were paying the price. I wouldn't let her win. The thought crystallized in my mind like frost on a winter morning. Even as the weight of our situation pressed down on me like a physical force, I refused to accept defeat. There had to be a way out of this maze of threats and ultimatums, a path forward that didn't end in complete destruction. "I thought you'd like to know, I bought Marshall Creek Vineyard. Just 10 miles from River's Edge. See you on the market, CO Andrea." "Oh wait, you're not a CO anymore, are you?" I clenched my fists until my manicured nails dug painfully into my palms, leaving crescent-shaped indentations that matched the hollow feeling in my chest. I could picture her smug smile, looking down at me from above like the victorious one, her lips curved in that familiar way that now held none of the warmth from our childhood memories. The image burned itself into my mind, a constant reminder of my failure. Months later, things were worse than I expected, spiraling downward with the ruthless momentum of an avalanche that destroyed everything in its path. The bank slashed costs with surgical precision, canceling every expansion plan I had carefully mapped out over sleepless nights and countless strategy sessions. My dreams of growing River's Edge into a world-class vineyard crumbled like dried leaves in autumn. My Mercedes, once a symbol of success and status, was auctioned off to the highest bidder, leaving me with nothing but the echo of its engine's purr in my memory. My European vacations were now nothing more than distant memories, fading photographs of sun-drenched vineyards and elegant wine tastings that seemed to belong to another life, another Andrea. And worst of all, I no longer had control over anything, watching helplessly as my empire slipped through my fingers like grains of sand. My mother still texted me every day, talking about mending the family, her messages filled with desperate pleas for reconciliation. But I didn't want to talk to her. I didn't want to talk to my father. Their words felt hollow, meaningless against the backdrop of our shattered legacy. They let this happen. They let Jessica take everything from me, standing by as she dismantled my world piece by piece. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I would never let her forget it. The taste of revenge would be sweeter than any wine we'd ever produced. So, life isn't always fair, a lesson written in the language of loss and betrayal. You think you're deserving, that you were born to win. But sometimes, the person you underestimated is the one who destroys you, their patience more deadly than any weapon. Jessica wasn't the strongest. But she was the most patient, the most ruthless, and she played the power game better than I did, moving her pieces across the board with calculated precision. And me? I made the mistake of thinking I was invincible, blind to the cracks forming in my perfect facade. What do you think about Jessica? Is she the hero or the villain in this twisted family saga? I know many will say I deserve this. But there are also those who understand. The war doesn't end here, not while I still have breath in my body. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want to know what happens next. Because I'm not stopping here.